Belal Muhammad is the welterweight champion of the world. I can't believe I just said that. That just sounds weird, but it's true. He had a dominant win over Leon Edwards, and we're here to kind of hash it out and see what's next after that surprising victory, I guess you could call it, here on Monday Morning Matchups. So we'll start right there at the top since we're talking about it. So Belal won that fight, in my opinion, 3 rounds to 2. I think it was definitive, and I'm glad that we got a definitive victor in this fight. No controversy and no need for a rematch. Rematches are starting to get kind of annoying to me, at least personally, or even the call for a rematch, and I don't think that that's needed here. So we'll start right at the top as far as assigning who Belal should defend his belt against, and I think it's very, very obvious. The number one contender, in my opinion, is and has been Shavkat Rakhmonov, and I think that Belal Muhammad's first title defense should be against Shavkat Rakhmonov. Kamaru Usman is probably listed above him or in that same area, but Kamaru is coming off of a few injuries, according to him. And JDM also has an injury. I've heard people talking about, or the rumor that Shavkat might be fighting Ian Gary, but why would you fight Ian Gary over going to try to get a belt? That doesn't make sense to me. So Shavkat Rakhmonov against Belal Muhammad, depending on whether they want to make that turnaround quickly and fight in Abu Dhabi or on Fight Island, however you want to do it in October. I think that would be a great time. It really depends on the champ, on whether he wants to make that turnaround that quickly and potentially put his belt on the line that fast. But if he's confident in his ability to fight, and Belal is an active fighter, I think that would be a really dope fight. Also, the fact that Islam has, according to him, has an injury to his hand, they won't have another person or champion to headline that card. So kind of fits in perfectly, if you ask me. I think that's the fight to make.
Ladies and gents, it's officially that time of the year. Sun's out, guns out, and let's not forget about the buns out too. Thanks to the Performance Package 5.0 Ultra from Manscaped, you can make sure everything's smooth from your pubes to your bum. Yes, we're talking about keeping your boys downstairs cool while turning up the heat everywhere else. Now let me tell you about the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. This trimmer is a game changer with its dual LED spotlights and skin-safe technology to help reduce grooming accidents. Whether you're at the beach, by the lake, or stepping out of the shower, this waterproof wonder has got your back and your front. Believe me, after a close encounter with my old trimmer last summer, I wouldn't go anywhere else. Thanks to Manscaped, my confidence and my sack are both looking better than ever. And because we love giving back to our fans, here's an exclusive offer for you. Head over to manscaped.com and use promo code MTW to get 20% off plus free shipping. Yes, you heard right, 20% off and free shipping with code MTW. But wait, there's more. Like this video, share it on Instagram or Twitter, tag us, and leave a comment below, and you'll be entered in our drawing to win a free Lawnmower 5.0. Don't miss this chance to elevate your grooming game. So, what are you waiting for? Join the Smooth Sack Summer movement with Manscaped. Get on board or get left behind.
Moving down the card, or before I even move down the card, let's go to Leon. Leon showed in that fight that he has some holes that he needs to clear up in his game. Him going backwards and just allowing Belal to dictate wherever the fight went did not bode well. Even though he did snatch up 2 rounds in that fight, the other 3 were so clearly Belal's. Leon definitely has some room for improvement. And I think a good way to get back on the horse is to fight JDM. JDM is coming off of an injury, according to what I've heard, to his arm. JDM beating someone like Leon would put him right there for a title shot against either Belal or Shavkat. Easy fight to make. Easy winner is one step closer to taking or getting a title shot. So I would say Leon Edwards versus Jack Della Maddalena would be a dope fight. So moving down the card, as I said, Tom Aspinall made easy work of Curtis Blades. I thought that Curtis Blades was going to do a little bit better in this fight. I thought he was going to show some takedowns, mix it up a little bit, but he came out and did some striking. Now, what I will say is Curtis Blades did catch Tom, and Tom's defense is questionable. If you go back and watch that fight, the little bit that we had, it was only a minute long, Curtis Blades did catch him, and it didn't mean anything to Tom. Tom walked right through those, but if it's a person with a little bit more power, Tom might be in trouble in those instances, but it didn't mean anything in this fight. Tom breezed right through Curtis Blades. As far as the stoppage itself, I thought that the stoppage was a half second premature, but it really honestly didn't matter. It was going to go that way anyway. So whether it got stopped at a minute, which it did, or if it got stopped at a minute 15, which, it doesn't really matter. He was losing. He was going to lose. And that's just kind of the way that the fight was going. Tom Aspinall is the best heavyweight in the world, in my opinion. And that is including John Jones. And speaking of John Jones is supposed to be fighting Stipe Miocic, rumored to be in November. It's easy. It's very easy. Tom Aspinall fights the winner of that fight. That's just the way it should go. If John Jones and Stipe Miocic, whichever one wins, decides to retire, then they just elevate Tom Aspinall to undisputed. I think that that's probably the way it's going to go. I think that John beats Stipe, retires, allows Tom to run with the heavyweight division. I don't see it going otherwise, unless John Jones's competitive spirit gets into the mix. That's really the only way it would go, in my opinion. So Tom against either the winner of those two. If it's not the winner of those two, then I personally would like to see Tom Aspinall against the winner of Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov. He's beaten Volkov before, but I do think that Volkov has improved, and we haven't seen Tom against somebody who can match him as far as his quickness on the feet, his ability to strike, and somebody like Cyril Gane. And that fight has some heat behind it because of Cyril pushing back on Tom when Tom was going to him for a fight. So I think that either of those fights, depending on how they shake out, would work for Tom. But at the top is clearly Tom against the winner of John Jones versus Stipe Miocic, depending on how they decide to end their careers, if they want to walk out after that particular fight. Now, the next one is very interesting. Paddy Pimblett made easy work of King Green, Bobby Green, Robert Green, whatever you want to call him. He was no match for Paddy Pimblett. I really questioned King Green's strategy when he went for that takedown. Maybe he was just trying to mix it up, give it a different look, but he went right into Paddy's world, and Paddy easily triangled him, put him to sleep, maybe broke his arm, who knows. But Paddy Pimblett showed that he belongs at least in the back end of that top 15. As far as fights for Paddy Pimblett, he called out Renato Moicano, and I think that is a perfect fight for him. And when putting this list together and thinking about Moicano, who is set to headline UFC Paris against Benoit Saint-Denis, originally I had Paddy Pimblett fight the winner of Renato Moicano against BSD, but I actually think that Paddy should fight Moicano regardless of what happens. Here's the reason. If Paddy, who should be tomorrow listed at number 15, if he fights Moicano, who I believe is at number 10, After Moicano wins, that's a fight that Moicano wanted anyway. It's a big fight. Could headline a fight night. It could be maybe a co-main or the third fight on the pay-per-view. It's a big fight, and I think that Moicano would appreciate that. If he loses against Benoit Saint-Denis, he will be fighting back in the rankings, which is exactly where Paddy Pimblett is. So either way it goes, it makes sense for Moicano. And for Pimblett, it definitely makes sense because Moicano is above him in the rankings. So I think that is clearly the fight to make for Paddy Pimblett. And he definitely showed that he can make some noise at that bottom half of the lightweight rankings. It remains to be seen what his striking will be like once he starts to move up. I think that's definitely going to be the area that he should or needs to improve in, but he did what he needed to do against King Green, and we'll see if that particular thing continues for him. The last one I wanted to bring up, and this one was a very interesting fight. I thought that this was going to be fight of the night, and it didn't give me the fireworks that I expected, but it did end the way that I expected as far as who won. And that's Gregory Rodrigues versus CLD, Christian Leroy Duncan. I expected Robocop to win that fight, and he did win that fight. I think that his veteran savvy in that fight, being able to mix it up, being so good in so many different areas, is what took him over in this fight. I do think that CLD is going to be good, but I think that this was just too much for him to chew on at this point. I think the CLD will be back, in that middleweight division is so deep, it's so stacked. I think that he'll have every opportunity to climb back towards the rankings. And speaking of the rankings, I think that Gregory Rodrigues should be fighting for a spot in that rankings. And so I have Gregory Rodrigues against Roman Dolidze. I know that Roman Dolidze just beat Anthony Smith, but that was at light heavyweight. That was short notice. And what Roman Dolidze has done in the division itself, he's lost 2 in a row within the division. And so I have him fighting back, have Gregory Rodrigues fighting up, and I think that would be an amazing fight. And I actually think that Gregory Rodrigues will win that fight. But that would be an amazing fight to have. And I kind of think that there's I won't say there's no way, but I would lean towards the fact that would be an exciting fight to put on. So, and that would give Gregory Rodrigues every opportunity to move into those rankings and have even better fights if he's able to overcome Roman Dolidze. So I want to say this about the card as a whole. The card as a whole, to me, was lackluster, and I don't think it has anything to do with the fighters themselves. I talked about this before. I have a video about this that I'll throw up here about the timing of this particular fight, or this particular fight card. I've talked to Frankie about this. Frankie has talked about this as well. I think that the fighters were done a disservice by this card being made at the time that it was. Us as Americans, if this card was earlier in the day, we wouldn't have had any issue at all whatsoever for this card being earlier in the day. The fighters did not have to fight in the middle of the night into the morning to be satisfied and to be able to view the pay-per-views. I mean, it may have done something to the numbers, maybe, but I don't know if the UFC was a little timid on competing with the Olympics, who the Olympics were first, they started that particular day, or they really started to kick off during that day. But I think that they should have made this earlier in the day, just to pay respect to the fighters. They would have got more exciting fights, in my opinion. The crowd would have been more into it. It would have been better for everyone. I don't think that the UFC should do things like that when they go in different parts of the world and the time zones don't necessarily match up with the US. I don't think that they should pander to the US as much as they did for this particular card, because the fights will be affected. And that's just kind of how it went. And another thing I want to say about this card is the Muhammad Mokaev versus Manoel Kape fight. Obviously, it was way more bark than bite going as far as this particular fight. Both fighters were timid. And then when Manoel Kape hurt his foot or his toe, that definitely limited his striking and his ability to move forward. And Muhammad Mokaev, that's just what he is. That's the type of fighter that he is. And the fact that he was cut, apparently, after this particular fight made all the sense in the world. If you are I loosely say employee because, I mean, they say that they're private contractors or they're independent contractors, but we all know that they're really employees of the UFC. If you are not able to work well with your employer and the people who put together the schedule for your activities, and you make it a pain for them to put you on that particular schedule, they're not going to want to put you on that schedule. And Mokaev is, in my opinion, he's young and he's brash and he knows that he's talented and he's leaning into that way too much. Somebody needs to be in his ear to let him know that he needs to be a little bit more humble and accepting of the opportunities that are given to him. And perhaps him being demoted into the PFL, because let's just be real, if anybody that goes to the PFL, that is a demotion. Maybe this will wake him up and maybe one day he'll have a path back to the UFC. But at this point, he deserves to go to the PFL or ONE or wherever he goes, because you can't have that kind of behavior and fight at the highest level in the highest organization. He doesn't deserve it. So he deserves to be let go. That's just the way that it is. So let me know your opinions. I threw out some fights there for y'all. Let me know what y'all think. Who do you think should be matched up for these fighters, the winners and the losers? And yeah, till next time.